these streets with diamonds in our eyes. Out with the vampires under a midnight sky. My mind so hypnotized. It was exciting. It was the 90s. Mama didn't understand it, and Daddy always said that I was going too far. Said there's never any compromising if you try to win the battle to be who you are. I dance to the left, I dance to the right, hold hands with my demons and creatures of night, on an undercover mission to find somebody else like me. Is there anybody out there? Is there anybody out there? Someone who can hear me and drink from the light, to see things from the same side. Is there anybody out there? 5 years later, I'm back with the same old faces and dead end places. Things kept going wrong. I'm getting to thinking my daddy was right all along. So will you take a little walk on the wild side? Be careful that you never slip your hands from the wheel. There's never any compromising when you're blinded by reflections from the part of you that's real. I dance to the left, I dance to the right, hold hands with my demons and creatures of night, on an undercover mission to find somebody else like me. Is there anybody out there? Is there anybody out Someone who can hear me and drink from the light, to see things from the same side. Is there anybody out there? I dance to the left, I dance to the right, hold hands with my demons and creatures of night, on an undercover mission to find somebody else like me. Is there anybody out there? Is there anybody out Someone who can hear me and drink from the light, to see things from the same side. Is there anybody out there? Somebody else like me. Somebody else like me. Somebody else like me. Somebody else like me.
Wake up! Wake up, everybody! Wake up! Yes, all of you in the back, I see you, slumped in your chair. Wake up! Collision is over.
You know what my mistake was? I should have just gone live at normal time. That's what I should have done. I made the mistake of being, oh, well, we'll watch all 3 hours. We'll watch all 3 hours. We'll go live after 11 o'clock. That was my fault. Dynamite tonight was the go-home show. Wrestle Dream is coming up on Saturday. And so this was the final episode, and they decided to combine the two shows. So we had a 3-hour block of AEW tonight. Did I scare? I woke up your puppy, says Dan. Good. Good. Tell him to wake up. He needs to listen as well. I mean, he shouldn't be sleeping through this. So what did we get tonight? We got a lot of promos, more than we would usually get. We got a lot of promos and vignettes, which I actually thought were fairly strong. And the Jon Moxley, Darby Allin one in particular is one that I actually enjoyed. So that was a noticeable change. We don't always get, a lot of that here on these shows. Because it's nice to not just follow match after match after match and, break up the monotony a little bit. Kenny Omega continues to go after everyone except the two people that have actually laid a beating on him over the last couple of months, including this gentleman right over here. I will draw your attention to the corner of the screen here. Donde está Andrade? I'm not sure. I'm not sure where Andrade is. I'm not sure why he is not being mentioned anymore. I don't think they've said his name over the last few weeks, even though when he returned to the company, he put a beating on one of the top stars in the company. Has not been seen since. Has not been mentioned. It's almost as if it never even happened. But whether it's Andrade or whether it's Kyle Fletcher, Kenny Omega isn't very interested in going after any of these people or bringing them up. No, now his issue is with Josh Alexander, because Josh Alexander is the one who was wrestling Kota Ibushi on Collision last week when Kota Ibushi suffered that unfortunate injury. And so in this trios match tonight, Kenny Omega was trying to get some revenge, a measure of revenge here on Josh Alexander. And he didn't really succeed. He got a little piece of him, but I guess he'll still have to try to get his hands on him, unless next week, of course, he moves on to a different member of the Don Callis family, which, based on what they've done recently, is entirely possible. So instead of Fletcher, instead of Andrade, instead of Alexander, maybe next week, Kenny will be interested in wrestling Hechicero, perhaps, or maybe having a good battle with Rocky Romero or Lance Archer. I don't know. I don't care. Why am I even spending my time talking about that? It is what it is, right? It is what it is. Look, as a go-home show, the Dynamite portion of the festivities tonight, I thought it was a fairly basic show. It didn't do anything to really move me. It's one of those shows where you're either looking forward to Wrestle Dream or you're not watching the show. And what you saw here on Dynamite tonight is not going to change your mind about anything in the slightest. And it was a 3-hour block, as I mentioned, and they immediately followed with Collision. I always love it on HBO Max, which is where I watch. When Dynamite ends, and I remember the first time this happened, I sat here, and it went to the screen, kind of like the stock screen. It says the show has ended. But I just assumed that it would pick up with Collision. I probably sat here for a good 3 or 4 minutes, and I said, wait a minute, I don't think Collision is coming on. Until I finally backed out, and then you have to specifically go find Collision and then click Collision and then the show starts. So I learned my lesson there. But when I saw Daniel Garcia and Wheeler Yuta come out for the opening match to open up Collision, it was Orange Cassidy against the two members of the Death Riders who came out, by themselves. It was Daniel Garcia and Wheeler Yuta. Once I saw that, that's when really reality set in for me, and I said, shit. I should have set the start time for this a lot earlier than I did. And I did sit through that match and the post-match, and that was about all I could take. So I got my notes together, and so here we are. We're going to talk about Dynamite, and then I will run through my Wrestle Dream predictions later on in the stream. We'll take your questions. We'll get the hell out of here. This is your AEW Dynamite review. It is Wednesday, October 15th. We are midway through the month of October, 2025. I am the Solomonster. Like, subscribe, all that good stuff. I know there's a bunch of super chats that came in earlier. There's a brand new $18 one that I just added. So you can find all those in the description down below. Let's just get right into this show, shall we? We had Renee Paquette. she conducted a sit-down interview backstage with the two women that are going to be in the AEW Women's World Championship match this Saturday at Wrestle Dream. The champion, Kris Statlander, and Timeless Toni Storm. And Toni removed her hat and her gloves. And so then Statlander tried to match her by removing some of her clothing. And I was enjoying this until Renee fucked it all up and told them basically to stop. And she threw her jacket down in frustration. So Toni said that she dreams of regaining the title. Says that she doesn't know who she is without it. But, darling, who are you? She says. I mean, I'm no Toni Storm. I could try to be, you know, as I try to recap this here, but I shall do my best, but I am not as good as Timeless Toni Storm. Apparently that really pissed off Asuka. That's one thing you don't want to do. You don't want to piss off Asuka. Thank you, Tuxedo T-Servo. So Statlander said Toni has never been able to figure her out because she's constantly evolving and is already different than the person that Toni faced at All Out. And Toni said that they've told some ridiculous lies, but at Wrestle Dream they will find out the truth. And Statlander said that Storm knows the truth, but she just needs to accept it. And Toni asked if the interview was over. Renee confirmed that, in fact, it was. And Toni told Statlander to meet her in the ring. And so the two of them made their way out to the ring. And they squared up and they start going at it. And for some reason, the referees didn't come out. They didn't send out the security geeks like we see this every week. I mean, if somebody sneezes the wrong way in the ring, right, they get swarmed. And evidently they didn't care. So they let them just do their thing. And they're brawling here in the ring. And Toni ends up on her knees. And she put her hands behind her back. And she was inviting Statlander to hit her with the AEW Women's World Championship. Statlander declined. So Toni worked her over and then eventually ended up with the belt. Statlander dropped to her knees. And she was giving her body up to her. Letting her hit her with the championship if she wanted to. And she teased that she was going to do it, but instead Toni kissed her on the forehead, and then she, at that point, exited the ring.
I am the learning tree. Thanks, guys.
Thank you, Brandon, for the spooky learning tree. Only a few more weeks, and then Pumpkinhead goes away. Thank you, Brandon. Well, I mean, that was different at least. It was certainly a different way to open the show than we normally get here on these Dynamite shows. Again, weird that nobody tried to break them up, but they had the most respectful brawl that you will ever see. I am looking forward to the match. As much as I enjoyed the four-way where she won the championship, I do want to see them have a straight-up one-on-one match. Obviously, I think it would be a mistake to just put the belt back on Toni. But that is a match I'm looking forward to on the card on Saturday. Now, Jack Perry was backstage, and he was shaving a block of wood down with his knife. He said he doesn't hate the Young Bucks. He actually loves them, and he will always be grateful to them for everything they've done for him. But when he needed them the most, they didn't pick up the phone to call him, and they didn't have his back. So he said he had to go look deep into his past to find somebody who would. And at that point, Luchasaurus entered the picture, and he growled at the camera because he doesn't speak, because he's a dinosaur. We have the Hurt Syndicate, Bobby Lashley and Shelton Benjamin against the Gates of Agony with Ricochet in their corner in a tag team match. This is a tag team match as a prelude to the trios match that we are going to be getting at Wrestle Dream on Saturday. So they did the street fight, if you remember on that anniversary episode. They did a street fight to build to the straight trios match. Okay. Lashley got worked over during the commercial break. He was able to hit an overhead belly to belly on Toa Liona for a reset. Benjamin made the hot tag. He ran wild with some stinger splashes. As Ricochet saved Bishop Khan from a pumped knee, he ended up eating one himself for his troubles. Bishop got taken to Suplex City until Toa Liona tried to make the save. Benjamin responded, though, with a pendulum DDT. Liona no-sold it. So the match broke down. Lashley and Toa Leona, they each got a head of steam outside and they collided with clotheslines and took each other out. Benjamin hit a belly-to-belly throw off the top rope on Khan. Bryce Remsburg, I don't even know how he ended up with it, but Bryce Remsburg ended up with MVP's cane for some reason. So he went to go give it back to him, and that allowed Ricochet to slide into the ring and hit Benjamin with the Spirit Gun. And MVP ended up cracking Ricochet with the cane at ringside, but Khan crawled over on top of Benjamin and he pinned Shelton Benjamin to win it for the Gates of Agony. And this was the first time that the Hurt Syndicate was pinned in a tag team match, straight up tag team match, since arriving in AEW. And it was as uneventful as it gets. It was almost like literally it was mentioned as like an afterthought when the match was over. Like they threw it out there and I thought to myself, oh, okay, this should feel like a bigger deal. But it was just like, nah, it didn't feel special at all. It was just something that happened. So the match was fine. I'm ready for this to be over. I am expecting a Cedric Alexander debut as the newest addition to the Hurt Syndicate this weekend. Cedric Alexander, evidently his contract just expired, possibly this week, with TNA. I believe he was in the Call Your Shot gauntlet at Bound for Glory on Sunday. But unless he signs something new, I don't believe he's under contract anymore to TNA, which would make him available, theoretically, to then link up with the Hurt Syndicate, which is where I thought he would end up when he left WWE, and then he didn't. I do still think ultimately it's his destination, and I'm just thinking we get that debut this weekend. But we'll see. That must have been a hell of a short deal, though. I mean, if his deal is up with TNA, he just signed and came back in June. You know, it's October. So not even 6 months. That's a really short deal. They aired footage of Darby Allin attacking Jon Moxley at New York Comic-Con. They did an angle there. And then they cut to a special vignette that they filmed. And it was Darby earlier today at an undisclosed location. And this looked like it was filmed at a prison somewhere because Darby was in this small room, like a cell, but it had a window dividing his room from the room on the other side. So imagine like if you were to, I don't know that any of you have had to visit someone in jail before, but you see it on TV and in movies, so we'll use that as an example. If let's say you had a friend or a relative, right? Or if you were a lawyer and your client was incarcerated and you were going to go speak to them, right? The little glass and you pick up the phone, right? That's what this basically was. And so on the other side of the window into that room walks Jon Moxley. So you got Moxley on one side, you got Darby on the other in the adjacent room. And, to keep both of them separate, I guess. You know what this was? This was like their version of the Batman and Joker interrogation scene from The Dark Knight. Only that was much, much better. I mean, that was obviously much more epic. But see, this is what happens. And I blame Joseph. Shout out to Joseph Stewart. See, this is what happens, Joseph. I got Batman on the brain now. I've got Batman on my brain with all the Batman questions. So Moxley talked about the implications of their I Quit match coming up at WrestleDream. In Toronto, there was zero chance, he said, that Darby would ever put him in a coffin. The game was rigged. This I Quit match is rigged in both directions because Moxley knows that neither one of them are ever going to quit. So he questions what Darby really wants out of this. If Darby wants to be on the right side of history, it's never too late. So Darby said that he wishes he could, but he can't. He understands the cause. Really, could you explain it to me? Because we've had conflicting explanations from the Death Riders themselves over the last year as to what their purpose is, as to what their mission statement is. But evidently Darby is well aware of their cause and what they stand for and what they represent. Not a day goes by, he says, he actually said this, not a day goes by that he doesn't think about joining the Death Riders. But he doesn't respect Moxley after what he did to Bryan Danielson. Why would he go to war with someone who would stab his brother in the back? Moxley said, look, I did what I could for Danielson, but this is a war for the future of the sport. And for their credit, they're running. What is it with these Shield guys? Here on this show, you've got Jon Moxley forming his own faction and coming out every week and talking about the future of the industry, the future of the company, the future of the sport. You got Seth Rollins on the other show forming his own faction and coming out and basically doing the same thing. I'm fighting for the future, right? Everything is so epic. Like this match that you and I are about to have, Cody. It's a fight for the future of this company. Like, fuck off. What is this nonsense? I don't recall like Stone Cold or The Rock or The Undertaker coming out on television every week, or John Cena or Randy Orton, even if you want to use a different era as an example, and coming out on television and cutting these fucking boring promos on television every single week over and over and over again about the same fucking shit. We got to save the future of the company. How about you worry about yourself? How about that? How about worrying about the here and now and not fucking 5 or 10 years from now? What is it with these Shield guys? At least Roman Reigns doesn't give a fuck about the future. He comes out, he just cares about himself. I respect that. Anyway, Moxley said sacrifices needed to be made. He said Darby doesn't know what sacrifice is. Yeah, Roman only cares about the future of his family. See, that's it. He's selfish. He doesn't give a shit about the future of the industry. He just cares about his own family. Fuck everybody else. Darby said that when he reached the summit at Mount Everest, raising the AEW flag, he looked down and he saw Moxley basically like nipping at his heels, like chipping away at what makes AEW so special. Says Darby will hang that flag in his house, so he's reminded every day at what AEW gives him. But before then, he'll wrap that flag around Moxley's throat. And Moxley said it might not mean much to Darby, but he's never lied to him before. And regardless of what Kairi says, dried chicken. Thank you. Man, what an angry woman. Regardless, though, of what Darby tries to do to harm himself, he's just fighting ghosts. He's chasing highs. He's trying to prove to the world that he's indestructible, which is a selfish game. The biggest difference between the two of them isn't about Moxley. And then Pac suddenly appears in this little cell that Darby is in, this little room. Pac got in somehow. And he attacks him from behind. And he's throwing Darby back and forth into the fucking brick wall. He's throwing him into the glass. We see blood now. Darby's blood smeared on the glass. Moxley is in the other room just kind of looking at the wall. He's not even looking at what's going on. And that was the segment. And Darby slowly collapses into a bloody heap with Pac standing over him as Moxley gets up and slowly exits the room. I really like the way that they did this. I really like the way that this was shot. Cinematic style. What I didn't like was Darby saying that I think about joining the Death Riders every day. Like, why? That was a stupid thing for him to say. After everything that these guys have done. Oh, I believe in your cause. I know about your cause, or I believe in your cause, right? Really? Really? These guys have been going around trying to murder people for over a year now, putting plastic bags over people's faces. They've been torturing and tormenting this entire company. They held the World Championship hostage to the point where we didn't even see the physical belt for 9 months. Oh, but I think of joining the Death Riders every single day, despite all of that. What a stupid fucking thing for him to say. This is supposed to be Mr. AEW over here. These guys have done everything in their power to try to make people's lives in this company a living hell and take over the show. So whatever they were going for there, that I didn't like. And it was never explained why they ended up in this undisclosed location. They just showed up there. I guess, I don't know, maybe through intermediaries. They agreed to meet in a neutral location, I suppose. But you know what? I enjoyed what they tried to do here. It was better than just throwing them out in the ring for a normal face-to-face. So I actually liked that. I liked the way that they shot this. After this, we had Claudio and Roderick Strong, one-on-one. Before the match got going, we had Excalibur on commentary. Wishing Taz, who is not going to be on commentary for some time because he had successful shoulder replacement surgery today. He had a knee replacement many months ago, so now he's got the shoulder done. So best wishes to Taz. And then he made a crack about how now maybe he can help out the Mets. Yes. The laughing stock, I guess, right? The laughing stock of Major League Baseball. Everybody has to make fun of the Mets. But not as much as the Phillies in the NLDS. I mean, we lost a lot of games, but we didn't lose any games like that. I'm just saying. So what did we get here? We got a hard-hitting match, as you would expect with these two. Claudio missed a boot, and he crotched himself over the top rope. That allowed Roderick to charge in with a running boot to the floor. He delivered a backbreaker onto the LED board outside before heading back in. Claudio blocked a running knee. He brought Roddy to the corner, and he wanted a gut-wrench superplex. Strong, though, slipped out and hit a super backbreaker on the top turnbuckle. Roddy was up first. He charged for a running knee. Claudio caught him, though, propped him up into the air, and hit a pop-up uppercut for the win. I mean, as a match, it was fine. You know, it was a fine match. I don't know that this match was needed on this show because neither of these men have a match on the pay-per-view this weekend. So I don't know why this had to be on this show. Pretty much everything else in the first 2 hours of the show, at least, tied into something that's going on Saturday. Now, whether it's AEW or WWE, if you have that final Dynamite or that final SmackDown or that final Raw heading into a pay-per-view, if you are going to have something on the show that does not directly tie into something that's happening on the big show that weekend, then it should be something significant at least, you know, that would tie into maybe a story that's playing out and it'll pick up, you know, next week on the show. This just was filler. I mean, it's a fine wrestling match, but so what? You find wrestling matches every week. I don't know why this had to happen on this show. A few days ago, see, this I enjoyed. This actually, I saw this on their social media a few days ago, and I had a good laugh at this. Don Callis celebrated his birthday a couple days ago. Turned 84 years old. So they shot this video of him walking into, I don't think it was a restaurant, wherever they were. He opens the doors. It's this private room. It's probably the fucking conference room at the hotel or something, you know, but they have a table and there's food and wine. And he's got the members of the Don Callis family who greet him. Actually, maybe half the members of the Don Callis family, because there were a bunch of members who were missing in action here. There was no Mark Davis. There was no Andrade, obviously, because nobody seems to know where he is. And El Clone was not there. We have not seen El Clone. Now, I would imagine it would be difficult for El Clone to drink and eat through the mask, so I can kind of understand why he wouldn't be there. And no Konosuke Takeshita, but we would be hearing from him momentarily. So as Callis walked in, they all sang for "He's a Jolly Good Fellow." And Okada didn't seem to know the words, but that's okay. Kyle Fletcher ended up, there was a flat screen on the wall behind Callis. And so Kyle Fletcher, before we go any further, Kyle Fletcher pulls the little cloth or tarp or whatever off the TV. And we see that they have a video all queued up. An MOV file, in fact, video message that Konosuke Takeshita, who has been over in Japan, sent in for Don Callis because he couldn't be there in person. And he was basically just talking about how Don has done so much for his career. And now he's going to win the IWGP Championship for Callis and the family. And he hopes he can make him proud. But before he actually finishes the message, Okada has the remote in his hand. And he pushes the button and he turns the video off. And everyone's like, oh, what happened? And they all look over at Okada. And Okada just goes, I pressed the wrong button. Not the first time we've heard that. I'm so sorry. Every time he says that, I can't not laugh. I just can't laugh. And again, the dissension, the jealousy, whatever you want to call it, the passive aggressiveness that Okada has towards Takeshita, they're doing the slow burn until we get the eventual match, hopefully in the Continental Classic, and we still have some time before we get there. In fact, they're going to be challenging as partners for the Tag Team Championships this weekend, so we're not getting to the breakup just yet. But yes, he cuts the video off with Takeshita on it to end the segment. That segues into footage of Takeshita, managed by Rocky Romero. That's right, another member of the Callis family who was obviously not present at the dinner since he was over in Japan with Takeshita. But Takeshita wrestles Zack Sabre Jr. At the King of Pro Wrestling event within the last week, and he is the brand new IWGP World Heavyweight Champion, a champion that we can all be proud of. He is the top guy in New Japan Pro Wrestling. So he's bringing the gold home for the Callis family. Okada's not going to like that. You know, Okada's held that IWGP belt a few times himself. Although the belt, the actual physical belt, V4, that he held was much nicer looking than the belt they have now. I don't know why they changed the design to begin with. That belt was honestly the most gorgeous of all the world championships in wrestling until they got rid of it. And I don't hate the new design. It's sort of grown on me a little bit, but it's nothing like the previous version. I have no idea why they felt the need to do that. I guess maybe because they merged the IWGP and Intercontinental titles and they felt they needed a new design, I guess. I don't know. So Callis was out next to introduce Mark Davis, Josh Alexander, and Hechicero for their trios match against Kenny Omega and Jurassic Express. That is what we had up next. This was Mark Davis's return to action from the broken foot that he suffered earlier this year. He actually returned on Collision to attack Kota Ibushi as Ibushi was laying outside the ring with a broken femur. And Mark Davis made a very uneventful return. He just showed up in the midst of all the chaos and started pounding away on Kota Ibushi until Kenny Omega came out to make the save for his friend. Don Callis on commentary said that he sent a note to Ibushi that in 5 years when he recovers, there's a spot waiting for him in the Don Callis family. And the unfortunate update for Kota Ibushi is that he had successful surgery, but it will be a year before he recovers, and it will be 2 years, according to the doctors, before he can get back in the ring and wrestle. So we are not going to be seeing Kota Ibushi for quite some time, but best wishes to him. So Omega wanted Alexander. He bolted instantly, having Hechicero start for the team. There was a drop toe hold from Hechicero. Omega, though, went back the other way, and he screamed in pain immediately. So Hechicero zoned in on the left leg. Later on in the match, Omega reluctantly tagged in Jack Perry, and he still didn't, and still doesn't, fully trust this man. And this is a story that they've been playing out over the last couple of weeks. And they did have a segment on Collision that I did see last week where Perry confronted him in the back. Omega said that he was sorry what happened earlier in the night to Ibushi, but, you know, basically trying to smooth things over between the two of them because they've had some issues in the past before. And Omega had really no interest at all in being friendly with Jack Perry, but he said, you know what, since I have no friends, and Jack's looking to prove to him that he can be trusted, I'll see you on Dynamite, right? That's what led to this match here, where they're on the same side. So Omega doesn't really trust this guy all that much, but he tagged him in. And Perry made quick tags with Luchasaurus. Davis tagged in. He launched Perry outside with a shoulder tackle. They went to commercial. So they come back to Perry. He's trapped in an ankle lock from Josh Alexander. And Omega was left pondering whether or not he should make the tag because Perry was starting to crawl over and reach for the tag, and Omega's on the floor outside, and he's like, eh. But he gets up on the apron, and he does tag back into the match, really because he wants to get his hands on Alexander. So he ate a series of sledgehammers until the "you can't escape" connects. Alexander, though, kicks out at 2. So Josh scrambled out of a Snapdragon into some rolling Germans of his own. Omega, though, was able to hit a V-trigger. Luchasaurus and Mark Davis, they tagged in. The two big men collided until Hechicero got in. He dropped Jack Perry with a mad scientist bomb. V-trigger from Omega on Hechicero. Davis was in to drop Omega. That left Luchasaurus to pop Davis with the huge headbutt. And Omega wanted a V-trigger. Callis, though, jumped up on the apron for the distraction. And that allowed Josh Alexander to drape Omega throat first on the top rope. Davis signaled for a lariat. Perry, though, shoved Omega out of the way, and he took the bullet for Kenny Omega. Trying to prove to Kenny Omega, that he can be trusted. So he took the bullet. Davis then caught Omega with a snap pile driver. Omega, though, just narrowly kicked out. Hechicero tagged in to apply the cross arm breaker, but Luchasaurus grabbed Alexander. He chokeslammed him onto Hechicero. That's one way to break the hold. Perry tagged in as Luchasaurus placed Hechicero on his shoulders, and Perry followed with a doomsday device to win the match. And I'm watching this, and I'm like, I watched Hechicero and Bandito have a 40-minute match for the Ring of Honor World Championship when they were doing their residency in Philadelphia at the 2300 Arena back in mid-August. And these guys were throwing everything at each other. And they were kicking out of everything. And look, I know wrestling's all about suspension of disbelief. But man, after I watched that match, and now I watch this, and this guy takes a doomsday device from Jack Perry and gets pinned, like just that easily. It's a hard pill to swallow. And also, it's a hard pill to swallow. Just the idea of Jack Perry doing a doomsday device. Not exactly Hawk doing the doomsday device. But he won the match for his team. So after the match, the Young Bucks hit the ring. They laid out Luchasaurus and Jungle Jack with super kicks. That left Omega stunned. And the Bucks wanted a Tony Khan driver. Omega, though, put a stop to that, and he got up in their faces until Luchasaurus mowed the Bucks down with a clothesline. Perry then used his partner to walk the top rope, and he hit a huge moonsault onto the Bucks and the Callis family outside the ring. The match was good. I thought it was a fun match. Omega came into this not trusting Jack Perry. And Jack did what he could do to try to prove himself here in this match. So that was kind of the story coming out of it. The two men, though, that attack Kenny Omega, I'm going to keep bringing this up. I don't understand how when you have a star the caliber of Kenny Omega and you bring him back and you shoot an angle where your TNT champion puts him through a table in such a way that he has to do a stretcher job. Okay? You know what this would be the equivalent of? This would be the equivalent of Roman Reigns beating Bronson Reed in Paris, and then Bronson Reed annihilates him as he did, and Roman does a stretcher job as he did, and he disappears for weeks. And then when Roman Reigns comes back, instead of attacking Bronson Reed and wanting to go after Bronson Reed, he goes and picks a fight with JD McDonough. Wouldn't really make a lot of sense, would it? You would go after the person that put you on the shelf. But then he comes back and he gets attacked by a completely different person. Now, to be fair, I don't know what's going on with Andrade. It's entirely possible there is something legitimately going on behind the scenes that we're not aware of. I'm not saying he's gone. I'm just saying maybe there's something going on and they don't want him mentioned for a reason. But be that as it may, it's just in terms of the story and trying to be consistent and really, build up that next big challenger for Omega. It's just very confusing. It's just very disjointed. And I don't know why it was done that way. If you weren't planning on going to Omega and Fletcher, I don't know why they would have shot that angle in the first place. Now, there was a report, it might have been from the Observer a couple of weeks ago, that Omega physically is in such a condition that he doesn't feel confident right now being able to go in the ring and have like a balls to the wall match with somebody like a Kyle Fletcher. So I don't know if that's true or not. If it's true, I think it speaks to the physical shape that Kenny Omega is in right now. He must be hurting if that's the case. But then why do that? Why even do that? Why even go down that route? Because it looked to me like he was going to come back and they were going to do a match maybe at Wrestle Dream, between Kenny Omega and Kyle Fletcher. And what a rebound win for Fletcher that would have been, coming off the loss to Hangman Page at All Out to come back and beat Kenny Omega. It would have been big for Kyle Fletcher. It's one thing for Kyle Fletcher to say, I hung with the world champion for 40 minutes. I lost, but I hung with the champion. Okay, great. But you know what would be even better? Putting him in the ring with another like credible name in the company and actually having Kyle Fletcher go over. And instead, they're just doing Kyle Fletcher against Mark Briscoe for the TNT Championship. So maybe eventually they'll circle back around to it. But in any event, the Omega booking has just been, I don't know, just very, very weird. Now, on the podcast, I talked about a theory that was being floated. And somebody had sent me a link to a Reddit post. It was well written, and it made me think about some things that I didn't pick up on when we saw Jurassic Express back at Daly's place when they had their return match. It was that squash. And Jack Perry was acting very heelish in that match. And even like bossing around Luchasaurus a little bit. He's still coming out dressed up as the scapegoat. Like nothing about his appearance or his presentation has really changed. You know, he's not out there in the fucking loincloth, waving his hands in the air to Tarzan Boy. He's still acting like heel Jack Perry, you know, with like a wink and a nod. So I don't know that he really is back to being a babyface. I mean, temporarily he is, but I think ultimately sort of the mask will slip and Jack Perry will be revealed as the same Jack Perry that he's been for the last couple of years. Now, whether or not he brings a Luchasaurus along or if Luchasaurus breaks away from him, I guess time will tell. But I think there's a story that hasn't quite been fleshed out yet there with Jurassic Express that might be playing itself out slowly. And I do wonder also about Ibushi, you know, and his injury and how that might affect plans that they perhaps had for him and Kenny Omega to be a tag team. Or my theory is they're going to do a men's blood and guts match next month in addition to the women's. And Omega and Ibushi may have been on the babyface team. So with Ibushi out of action, they're going to have to come up with a plan B and find somebody else to plug into that spot. They didn't just randomly bring Kota Ibushi back last week. They brought him back for a reason. You know, whatever that reason is, whatever his spot would have been, somebody else now has to step up and take that spot. So after this, we had Jamie Hayter against Skye Blue as Jamie prepares for her match with Tekla at Wrestle Dream this weekend. Skye Blue, of course, is a member of the Triangle of Madness, as is Tekla, as is Julia Hart, who is out there in Skye Blue's corner. And, you know, for all the bad blood that has been building for weeks and weeks and weeks with Jamie Hayter and the Triangle of Madness, I love how they start this match and they are trading hammerlocks. Yeah, because nothing says bad blood like using holds to start this match off here. Anyway, skipping ahead to late in the match, Skye Blue dragged Jamie to the floor. As she leapt off the apron, she got caught with a Hayter fallaway slam. Back inside, Hayter signaled for the end. Skye Blue hit a desperation sliced bread for a near fall. Blue wanted Code Blue, but Jamie waffled her with a lariat and then a proper Haterade for the win. After the match was over, Julia helped Skye Blue up the aisle as Jamie celebrated in the ring until Tekla was shown on the Tron. And for the first time, not on social media, not on Collision, for the first time on Dynamite, we actually heard from and got a full-length promo in the back from Tekla. And she's on the screen, and she said that she's been around the world, and she's not impressed with Jamie Hayter. And she also finally... this is breaking news here. I got to get ready for this. She revealed the reason why she attacked Jamie Hayter back in May. We never did get an explanation when she debuted as to why she chose to go after Jamie Hayter. That was a long time ago. So she explained why. It was because Jamie just happened to be there. Jamie Hayter was in the wrong place at the wrong time, just like she is now. So, hey, at least we finally circled back around to the explanation for why she did what she did. So Tekla said that her name means chaos and poison, and Saturday will get toxic to the core as she asks Jamie to impress her. You know, Jamie is the one who called for blood and guts on Collision a few weeks ago, and these are two women. I'm sure that'll be in it. So it's just a slow crawl right now until we get there, because blood and guts is not until November 12th. You know, we're still a month away. So it's going to be a while. Queen Aminata has been beefing with Tekla for a while now, and you would expect that she would be in blood and guts. And Queen Aminata has not wrestled since the All Out pre-show, which was almost a month ago. And then she dropped a new vlog on her YouTube channel and revealed that she might have a knee injury. She was at the taping, I think, last week, and she was doing some sort of pre-tape or, I don't know, rolling around in the ring, whatever it was. And she tweaked her knee. And so she didn't think anything of it. She went home. And apparently the knee has just kind of gotten worse. It's swelling. So there's some sort of knee issue. Maybe it's not a major thing, but it could be major enough that maybe she won't be a part of Blood and Guts. I don't know. But she's had this like blood feud going with Tekla for a few months now. So if she's out of that Blood and Guts, they'll have to replace her as well. Renee was backstage with the TBS champion, Ultimo Monet. Mercedes Monet. She put over Mercedes, tying Ultimo Dragon with 10 championships at the same time. She just won her 10th title in Denmark this past Friday. And they didn't mention this, but FYI, she also has a match in Winnipeg this Sunday for Winnipeg Pro Wrestling. She's going to be challenging Jody Threat for their championship. So get ready for 11 belts, Monet, because you know it's coming this weekend. So she was, and I have to mention this as well, she's about to break Jade Cargill's record as the longest reigning TBS champion in AEW history. And when that happens, she will be the champion for 509 days. Feels a lot longer than that. But yes, the record is about to fall. And honestly, that's the best thing that can happen. That is the best thing that we could ask for, because once the record falls, right? Because she was close enough that you knew that she was going to break the record. Once the record falls, it at least makes it plausible that now when she defends the championship, depending on who it's against, you might actually buy into the idea that she will actually lose the championship because there's no more record. She set the record, right? She doesn't have to worry about anything. She's number one. She's at the top of the list now. And we know she's going to win the AEW Women's World Championship. It's just a matter of when. And I was thinking about this. She'll win the title next year. I don't know that she's going to win the title until we get a little deeper into 2026. I could see her winning that championship, maybe Revolution, maybe even Double or Nothing, sometime around then. Because think about it. She has 10 titles right now, right? Soon to be 11. If she was to challenge for the AEW Women's World Championship, she's going to have to lose all these titles, one by one. If she was to win the AEW Women's World Championship before she drops all of these titles, like if I'm Tony Khan, I don't want my Women's World Champion to go around the world losing to, 10 or 11 different times. So you would think she's going to have to drop all these belts first, and at that point, she could go after the women's world title, and then she'll end up as the champion, because it's inevitable. We know it's going to happen, but realistically, it can't happen until she drops all of the existing belts that she has. That's going to take some time, especially if she's going to travel back to these different countries, go there and drop those titles. It's going to have to happen over a period of a few months, but that's what I think we're looking at in the future for her. She also said that she would be at Wrestle Dream, but they never specified what she would be doing on the show. You would think she maybe an open challenge like she did at Daly's Place, last week, but they didn't say. Maybe she's going to have a celebration. If she's not wrestling, at the very least, I would expect some sort of an angle to set up the next challenger, maybe for Full Gear. And the Dynamite portion of tonight's 3-hour block concluded with the AEW World Champion Hangman Adam Page coming out to do commentary for the Opps against La Faccion Ingobernable, the team of Rush, Dralistico, and the Beast Mortos. And this was for the AEW Trios titles. Riho will break Monet's record when Monet goes back to WWE. So Riho's going to be champion for 510 days? Yeah, I don't think so. I don't think so. There was an awkward spot. I'm just going to skip ahead to the closing moments of this. There was an awkward spot late where Shibata delivered a basement drop kick to Rush, who was laying on the apron, and Rush didn't budge. He didn't move. So Shibata got out of the ring and brought him outside, and I don't know what they were trying to do. They were clearly not on the same page, unless one of them was hurt. It looked like Rush was trying to communicate something to Shibata, and then they sort of disappeared off screen to the side. Hobbs tagged in late, and after mowing down Rush and Mortos with clotheslines, he caught Dralistico with a World's Strongest Slam. Big pop for the crowd. They were into Hobbs. Joe tagged in. Joe, of course, is the number one contender for the AEW World title. He tagged in, and he squashed Dralistico with a running senton, hit the snap power slam. He wanted a muscle buster. Mortos and Rush, they made the save. Dralistico leapt off the middle rope right into the clutches of Samoa Joe, who applied the coquina clutch. And that was it. He put him to sleep. He didn't tap out. He passed out. And Joe wins it for his team. After LFI attacked the Opps, as Rush spat on Hangman, who was just minding his own business doing commentary outside. So he hit the ring to clean house. Dralistico and Mortos got sent flying. Sammy Guevara, who is part of LFI now, he pulled Rush out to safety and avoided a buckshot lariat. Joe reached down. He picked up the AEW World Championship, and he stared at it. And then Hangman turned around. Now they've locked eyes. And Joe shoved the title into his chest. See, he should have done that and dropped it, like Hangman did to him when he handed him the Trios title. That's what sparked this entire thing. That's how this whole feud got started. Hangman went to hand him his Trios title and let go, and Joe wasn't ready, and the belt fell to the floor. You would think that somebody threatened Samoa Joe's family. That's how angry he got at Hangman. Hangman should have done the same thing here. Right? Joe hands him the title. He's not quick enough, and the belt falls to the floor. It would have brought things full circle. But he grabbed the title, and Joe left the ring, and that is how Dynamite ended. The main event was fine. The post-match, though, pretty paint-by-number stuff. Keep Joe looking strong. You get one last very quick, inconsequential confrontation here between champion and challenger before the main event on Saturday. I say main event, but I'm not even sure this is going to close the show. I mean, they're really doing more of a job of building up this I Quit match than they are this match. And in fact, if you go to the AEW website and go to the events tab and click on the Wrestle Dream card, and they have graphics for each match, the I Quit match is listed ahead of the world title match. That's the first match listed. And after that, they list the AEW world title match. So especially if they have some kind of big spot plan with fire or something, I could totally see the I Quit match closing that show on Saturday. So now I did watch the beginning of Collision. My bad. I watched the beginning of Collision in the third hour, and it was Orange Cassidy and Kyle O'Reilly against Daniel Garcia and Wheeler Yuta. I won't bore you with the details, but Jon Moxley was shown stalking around in the crowd midway through this, watching his boys. And they weren't doing so well. Shocker, I know. So we got the usual Death Riders interference and the usual Death Riders bullshit. Marina Shafir took the referee as Garcia was tapping out. Pac sprinted out. He attacked Orange Cassidy. Claudio blasted Kyle with an uppercut before throwing him back inside, and that allowed Garcia to steal the pin. This crowd could not give a single solitary shit when Daniel Garcia got the win here in this match. They could not care. I'm actually wondering if Garcia is actually worse off now than he was before. And he wasn't really doing anything before. But whether or not this is benefiting him, I guess the only real benefit is that being part of the top heel faction, he's at least on TV. I mean, that's the best thing I could say about the position he's in right now. But after the match, the Death Riders continued beating down Cassidy and Kyle O'Reilly until Roderick Strong and Tomohiro Ishii, they came out to try to make the save. And they suffered the same fate, leaving Moxley alone in the ring with a microphone when Darby Allin's music hit. See, they couldn't leave well enough alone. They should have just left it with the cinematic vignette earlier in the show in the jail, which I enjoyed. I thought that was well done. If they would have left it there, that would have been fine. But we have a third hour, so we have to stretch things out. So Darby's music hits, and Darby Allin comes walking out like a fucking zombie. Either a zombie or somebody who just came from the bar on a bender. That's, literally how he's walking out. You would think this man was the undead. This was some sort of Halloween gag. He's got the makeup too, right? It just fits. So he's coming out, and like a total goof, here comes Claudio. He charges in out of nowhere in the aisle and just puts him down and blasts him with an uppercut, like a running uppercut. And down goes Darby, who's still selling this beating from fucking 3 hours ago. 2 hours ago. What? Actually, that wasn't live, right? What they showed us earlier wasn't live, I don't believe. It wasn't meant to be live. So who knows how many hours ago that thing was filmed? And we're supposed to believe that Darby, well, he just made it to the arena, I guess, and he's been walking around like this for the last 7 hours. Anyway, he gets knocked down, and everyone's beating up on Darby. Pac comes over, he's kicking his ass. But even after everything that gets thrown at him, a bloody Darby, he raises his hand up to grab the apron, and he pulls himself into the ring and all the way over to the feet of Jon Moxley. And Darby pulls out the AEW flag, the AEW logo flag that he brought to the summit of Mount Everest. And he unravels it and lays it flat on the mat at Moxley's feet. And he took the mic and he said, "It's never too late, John, to say I quit." And Moxley instead laid him out with a Death Rider, spiked him down right down on top of the flag, and he left through the crowd. And that was enough for me. That's where I tapped out here. I'm not watching 3 hours of this with the rest of the matches, basically building up the pre-show on Saturday. You know, they had some stuff with FTR and Jet Speed, and I don't give a shit. You know, they have their tailgate brawl or whatever the fuck it is that they call it. There was a segment, by the way, I did as I was getting ready to go live, because it was like background noise. There was a backstage segment with Eddie Kingston, who has been completely, my God. Eddie Kingston came back, and he's just totally inconsequential on these shows. They brought him back. He's a tag team wrestler now with Hook. And they had this backstage segment, and they're setting up that they're going to be at the tailgate brawl. They're going to be at the pre-show on Saturday. But he's like, in the promo, he's turning to Hook and he's asking him, what's that thing on Saturday, right? I'm assuming they did this intentionally because Hook is like aloof or whatever. He's very laid back. But it just came off to me like Hook forgot the name of the show and forgot his lines. Like, he just looked like a fucking idiot here in this segment. Again, I'm assuming that's the way, not that Hook is an idiot, but just that's the way it was designed to be. It just didn't come across really well. But it was almost like Eddie's just like, yeah, what's that show on Saturday? And Hook looks at him and he goes, oh, yeah, the tailgate. Yeah, we'll be there. Like, what was the point of this segment? They look completely disinterested in what they were talking about here. Like, literally like, hey, guys, we need you to do a quick promo in the back and just plug the fact that you're going to be on the pre-show on Saturday. And Eddie's like, yeah, whatever. Like, just tell me what you want me to say and I'll fucking do it. Just like totally disinterested, kind of like I was watching the third hour of this show. And at that point, that was it for me. So not much else to say about this show. I'm glad it's over so we could talk about the predictions now. I'm going to run through the card real quick and do these predictions for Wrestle Dream on Saturday. We'll start from the bottom here. There are 2 matches. I'm sure that maybe they'll add more. Who the hell knows? But there's 2 matches on the tailgate. FTR is taking on Jet Speed. I've got FTR winning that. Willow Nightingale and Harley Cameron are taking on Megan Bayne and Penelope Ford. I know Megan Bayne got a win in that 3rd hour tonight. I'm going with Willow and Harley for the win. Then on the main show, we got The Demand, Ricochet and the Gates of Agony in a trios match against Bobby Lashley, Shelton Benjamin, and MVP. And this should be the end of this feud. I am certain that the Hurt Syndicate is going to win. And I believe that we will get the debut of Cedric Alexander as the newest addition to the Hurt Syndicate. TNT Championship on the line. Kyle Fletcher defends against Mark Briscoe. I'm going with Kyle for the win. Jurassic Express against the Young Bucks. $500,000 on the line because the Bucks are broke again because Nick Jackson gambled away all of their money. And so Tony Khan was kind enough to add $500,000 as a purse, as the prize money here for this match. At least it makes sense. The Bucks are broke and they begged him, please put some money on the line here. We need money. We got bills to pay. We got mouths to feed. And I think they will, because I think the Young Bucks are going to win the match and they're going to win the money. Because honestly, what does Jack Perry and Luchasaurus need $500,000 for? Like, what would even be the purpose of that? Like, when the Bucks won the money the first time, they actually filmed like vignettes and they played into it. And I'm sure they'll do it again if they win the money here in this match. But if it goes the other way, it's like, I guess the Bucks are still broke. I guess that's the point. But it's like, it's totally pointless if the Bucks don't win this match. Then we have the tag team titles on the line. Brodito defend against Okada and Takeshita, the brand new IWGP champion, teaming up with the unified champion. I believe they're going to have more gold because they're going to win those tag team titles. I'm predicting new tag team champions to be crowned. We have Kris Statlander defending the AEW Women's World Championship against Timeless Toni Storm. I've got Statlander retaining the title. We've got the I Quit match between Darby Allin and Jon Moxley. I've got Darby Allin winning that one and putting an end to this. Maybe, probably not. If there's a men's blood and guts, then this definitely won't be the end for these two. And then the AEW World Championship. Hangman Adam Page defends against Samoa Joe. Should be a good match. Love seeing Joe get a title opportunity. Total filler match until MJF comes back. Not a chance that Joe walks out with that championship. But it should be good. But Hangman's going to win. And there's your card. That is your Wrestle Dream card. I will have a full Wrestle Dream review on the podcast on Sunday. So that will be episode 934 of the Sound Off. In addition to all the news of the week, Seth Rollins and everything else that goes on, that is where you can find my Wrestle Dream review. Let's get into your super chats here. No poll. I did not. I was going to wait for Collision to end, and then I decided to go live earlier, and I just didn't get a poll up. And frankly, if I did get a poll up, I think it would be a massacre. So you can imagine what the poll results would be. I don't think you need me to put the poll up tonight. That's right. Leopoldo says the Bucks need some bucks. That is true. All right, let's get into your questions here. Joseph Stewart is with us, always showing support and love here on the channel. I appreciate it. His first question is WWE related, though. He wants to know, if you were asked to book a Roman Reigns Uncle Howdy feud, how would you book it and what would be the storyline? I mean, I would want to tie it into Roman's history with Bray, because they were, for a period of time there, I don't want to say arch enemies, but, you know, they were on opposing sides. Their careers sort of mirrored, in terms of their rise there, their careers sort of mirrored each other. I don't know exactly what the story would be, but I would want to tie it into Bray in some way, and that connection that Roman and Bray had. But honestly, I can't tell you I'm interested in even seeing that as a feud. I really don't have any interest in seeing that. He says, if you were Batman and you had to... I wish. If you were Batman and had to make a choice, who would you choose to be your wife? Catwoman or Harley Quinn? Catwoman. In the leather? Catwoman. Do you remember the Batman animated series episode? Harley Holiday. That's where Harley kisses Batman at the end of the episode. I have never seen that episode before. It's like years ago they had the Star Wars Christmas special, right? They have these like special holiday episodes and movies that they do. I never saw them. Joseph says, once Alexa Bliss joins the Wyatt Six, should Uncle Howdy and Alexa have a Joker and Harley Quinn run as a duo? No, I don't think that's necessary. Also, would you like to have seen Ben Affleck do his solo Batman movie with Jared Leto as the Joker, Margot Robbie as Harley Quinn, J.K. Simmons as Commissioner Gordon, and Joe Manganiello as Deathstroke? I think that's a pretty good cast that you put together there, so sure. Not really digging Jared Leto as Joker, but the guy that I want as Joker isn't alive anymore, so why not? Joseph says, do you remember when Kane and Tori were a couple in late 1999? Yes, I do. I remember when Tori turned on Kane, and then Kane came back and he tombstoned her. That's how we got Tombstone Tori. Also, do you know what happened to Tori, and should she go into the WWE Hall of Fame? I think she ended up doing, I don't know, maybe like a fitness instructor or yoga. It was something related to fitness. And no, she doesn't belong in the Hall of Fame. WB just announced they are planning to make a live-action Jetsons movie, and Jim Carrey is in talks to play George Jetson in the movie. A live-action Jetsons movie? Can we just leave the cartoon alone, please? Are people asking for this? Were they asking for a live-action Jetsons movie? And if so, why? Do you remember WWF WrestleMania 2000 video game? I remember it, but wasn't that for N64? I didn't have N64. So I never played it, but I was aware of it. Are you going to see the movie Tron Ares? I would consider it. I saw the last Tron movie. It had what was the name of it? I saw the original Tron many years ago, and then I saw the last Tron movie they did, where Daft Punk did the soundtrack. One of the best soundtracks to a movie I've ever heard. I just love that music. But I saw the last Tron movie and I enjoyed it, so I would consider seeing this one. I don't know if I'm going to see it in the theater though. I might wait for it to come out on streaming. Do you think the best part about going to the movies is watching the previews and the trailers to a new movie? Maybe I would have said that years ago, but now it's just completely obnoxious. And I like how some movie theaters now are giving you on the ticket, they give you the time that the actual movie starts. So you can skip all the trailers if you want to, because it's too much. It's too much. The last movie I went to, which did not have that listed on the ticket, it was supposed to be a 4:00 movie. The movie itself did not start, I'm like legit, the movie itself did not start until almost 4:40. 4:40. That is obscene. So now it's to the point where it just pisses me off more than anything else. Show me a few previews, great. But between the previews and the movie commercials and then this bumper and that bumper and this bumper and here, eat your popcorn, turn your phone off, go fuck yourself. It's no wonder I barely go to the movies anymore. With the Jason's movie being announced, who do you think should play I think he meant Jetsons. I was like, the Jason's movie. Who do you think should play Jane Jetson, Judy Jetson, and Elroy Jetson opposite Jim Carrey as George Jetson? I have no idea. I really don't want to see a live-action Jetsons movie, so it's not really I'm not the audience for that movie. I saw the cartoon as a kid, but I'm not really the audience for this movie. And some of those roles are young kids, so I mean, I don't really have any favorite child actors that are currently out there right now, so I don't have a single name I can offer for you. Says, thoughts on this idea, Cameron Diaz as Jane Jetson and Sabrina Carpenter as Judy Jetson. Yeah, I don't like that. Thoughts on Jared Leto playing Skeletor in the Masters of the Universe live-action movie? Well, if the feedback I have seen in the chat to Jared Leto as the Joker is any indication, probably not. Skeletor is near and dear to me. Skeletor and, like if you're a Thundercats kid, you know Mummura. Like, those villains are near and dear to my heart. But Skeletor is just, like, you got to find the right person to play Skeletor. I don't know who that person is. Maybe get Daniel Day-Lewis to play Skeletor. I don't know. I think we could do better than Jared Leto. What was the best movie that I saw in the theater? The Dark Knight. I saw The Dark Knight in IMAX when it came out. It's the best movie experience that I've ever had. Right from that opening scene with the bank heist and the zip line in. See, I saw it at a place out on Long Island, actually. It's an aviation museum called the Cradle of Aviation. And I don't know if they still show regular movies there sometimes. At the time they did. And they had an IMAX theater. And it was very unique. It was not like any other IMAX theater I've ever been to before. Because I went in there and it's like, obviously you have the screen in front of you, but it was also like kind of over you a little bit. Like, it was so unique. And I'm so happy I got to see that movie on that IMAX. Because any other IMAX I've been to since then, I haven't been able to replicate that experience. I don't even know if they show movies there anymore. It's not even a real movie theater. Again, it's like an aviation museum. Buy or sell Jerry Lewis, Nutty Professor, or Eddie Murphy, Nutty Professor? Eddie Murphy. What is your favorite part and experience about going to the movies at the theaters? My favorite part? Well, it's definitely not the people that are in the theater with me, and it's definitely not the 40 minutes of previews. So I will say the best part is just being able to see it on a much bigger screen than I usually get to see it in. Isn't that why people go to the movie theater? Like, when you see like a big budget movie, especially like a big popcorn film or a big budget blockbuster, you kind of want to see it, on the big screen. Beyond The Dark Knight, I'll throw this in there. As far as best movie experience, I will throw Cloverfield. If you're a longtime listener of the podcast, you know what a big fan I am of that. When that movie came out, it was January 18th, 2008. I remember that because that was part of the movie advertising, 1/18/08. And I remember talking about it on the Sound Off. I gave a whole analysis after I finally went to, because I had started doing the sound off only like 2 or 3 months earlier. So those like the early days of the sound off. Those first episodes, by the way, are on the channel right now. But you got to be a channel member on the Legends tier. And then you get access to it. Solo's favorite sicko. Nothing better on a Wednesday night than 3 hours of the best damn wrestling on the planet. Am I right? Stay frosty, Solo. Thank you, Solo's favorite sicko. Al Pacino, says Joseph Stewart, and Robert De Niro did a brand new interview together talking about their friendship and their career. I did see something about that. They were like calling each other their bestie. I mean, I knew they were friends. I didn't know they were that close. Oh wow, you saw Heat in the movie theater? I wish I could have seen that movie in the theater. Did you know Danny DeVito wrote a Penguin and Catwoman romance comic of them as a couple? I did not know that. Were you a fan of Quentin Tarantino, Pulp Fiction? Of course. Pulp Fiction is a fantastic movie. Pulp Fiction is a classic. We got Dried Chicken in 2026. I am predicting AEW will gain more non-wrestling fans. Also, will gain more non-wrestling fans. I'm gonna say no. No, they're not. Their audience is a very niche audience that does not appeal to non-wrestling fans. So I'm going to say you're wrong about that. Also, I'm predicting Nick Khan will stay on with WWE and TKO. Why wouldn't he? You know how much money this guy has made that company? They're more likely to get rid of Triple H before they get rid of Nick Khan. It says Darby Allin and Jon Moxley segment equals cinema. Also, what I like about Don Callis in AEW so far, he is the Lex Luthor of professional wrestling. The Don Callis family is like the Legion of Doom. Sure, in terms of their numbers. In terms of how many of them there are, I will agree with you on that, yes. We got Josh Carlos, 98. Garcia looks like a Gilbert version of Lesnar. A Gilbert version of Lesnar? He doesn't look like Lesnar at all, brother. I don't know where you're getting that from. You are the only person, I think, on planet Earth who has ever made any sort of comparison between Brock Lesnar and Daniel Garcia. I think Brock Lesnar probably has bigger bowel movements than Daniel Garcia. Broly7, go out of your way to watch Evolve's main event tonight of Kendall Gray and Callie Armstrong. Those two women are less than 2 years in and are already great. Was Kendall Gray, I haven't watched it yet, was Kendall Gray in the Women's Battle Royal on NXT this week? Like when Evolve got rebooted, I saw the first couple of episodes and Kendall Gray was someone who did impress me. So it's nice to hear that she's progressing because she could be a real star for them. But I thought I read that she was in that Battle Royal on Tuesday. Tuxedo T Servo, for those not awake yet. Also, my birthday is on Sunday. Well, everybody wish Tuxedo T Servo a very happy birthday. My gift to you will be the sound off. I'm giving you the gift of the sound off this weekend. Power Spine Games, rest in peace, D'Angelo and Diane Keaton. Yes. Diane Keaton was 79 years old, and D'Angelo was only 51. Passed away from pancreatic cancer. Brandon Proctor, since we don't see him on Dynamite anymore, thanks, guys. Yes, and I don't think you will be seeing him on Dynamite ever again. We got Joaquim. This was the most AMO until storytelling I don't know what you're trying to say there, but I think he's saying the most storytelling that he's seen on AEW in a while. I did notice the increase in vignettes and pre-tape segments, which I actually think added to the show, especially the Darby segment and the Moxley segment. I did enjoy that. Not the one that came in hour 3, but the one that came in hour 1. Power Spying Games, rest in pieces to Ian Watkins. Pedo, because of his sick actions, no one talks about Jeff Hardy's amazing video package from Royal Rumble 2008. Oh, was that the guy? What was that band? Lost Prophets? Right? There was some kind of song they used for a Jeff Hardy video. Is that what you're referring to? I did hear about that guy. Dry Chicken says it's a murder mysteries featuring the Don Callis family. Everybody is partying. All of a sudden, the lights go off. They come back on. Don Callis is laying on the ground, dead. You're the detective, and you have to determine which member of the Don Callis family is the murderer. Andrade. Maybe that's why he hasn't shown up. He committed murder, and he had to vanish. So he fled. See, now it all makes sense. Except Don Callis is still very much alive. He didn't get the job done. Oz and Glorious, where's the Batman dude? He's flying around somewhere trying to save Gotham. Where else would he be? Bender McSimpson. Random thing I loved in wrestling. When Sting was the world champion in the main event Mafia, but Kurt Angle was technically their leader. God, that reminds me of that match they had. Maybe it was Bound for Glory, but Sting and Kurt Angle had a match, and Kurt Angle was supposed to try to hit Sting with a baseball bat, and Sting was supposed to catch the bat before it hit him in the face. And instead, the bat went right through his hands, and it hit him hard enough in the face that it made a loud thud. And the look on Kurt Angle's face was just priceless. Like, in that moment, he was scared shitless. He's like, oh my God. And Sting just no-sold it. Like a badass. He got hit in the face with a bat. And he no-sold it. And he's pouring blood, of course, because he got hit in the fucking face with a bat. And then he won the match. But I will never forget the sound that bat made when it hit him in the head. Oh my God. Oh, it's awful. It's just terrible. Oz and Glorious, shout out to Mox, who is literally carrying almost every boring as fuck talent in AEW on his back single-handedly. Marina, Claudio, Garcia, Yuta, and Darby. Yeah, I mean, they took all the... Well, not all. You forgot Pac, but like they took so many uninteresting characters and gave them a purpose, I guess, by kind of being in this group, but they're no more interesting now than they were before. So if that was the goal, they failed. It gave them something to do, but unfortunately, it just guarantees them television time every week where they haven't really done anything to evolve their characters. So instead, they've guaranteed that these boring characters are going to populate our television screens every single week, and they wonder why people are tuning out. I thought the Death Riders were gonna die coming out of All In. We're going into fucking Wrestle Dream. They're as strong as ever. MacTub. Given the hype and views Punk and Roman generated around Survivor Series, do you think they should have had a feud or a match for WrestleMania 41 instead of the triple threat? I don't think it mattered. I mean, they were still in the ring together in the WrestleMania main event. I think that if you're asking me what I think the stronger match would have been to do, I agree with you. The stronger match would have been Punk and Roman, built around the loyalty of Paul Heyman. Rollins felt tacked on. So if I was going to book, I mean, look, if I'm booking, I'm not booking multi-man matches in my WrestleMania main event to begin with. It would have to be a really good match. And that ended up being an excellent match. Don't get me wrong. As a general rule, I would prefer a really strong like singles match in the WrestleMania main event. So I probably would have booked Roman and Punk. You know, next year I'd love to see Cody and Punk. Oz and Glorious. How much do you think Triple Fraud offered Toa Leona to come over and join the other 84 Polynesians in the Fed? Nothing, I hope. That would be contract tampering. Something I'm sure WWE would never do. Yeah, I know. Arizona Zombie says now Darby is teasing joining the Death Riders. Yeah. What a dipshit comment that was to make. I think about joining the Death Riders every day. If you wanted a sure sign that Darby is suffering from CTE, you got it tonight on this show. Mac Tubb says, you've said you don't think Cena's the GOAT, but is in the convo. What wrestlers do you clearly rank above him? Oh, well, I mean, Hogan, Austin. Hogan, Austin, easily. I mean, they just, in so many ways, they transcend wrestling. I mean, they're so important to wrestling, and Cena was very important to his era. But again, I mean, are you doing like the Mount Rushmore bullshit? I'm so fucking tired of that. Are we doing the Mount Rushmore thing? Are you doing personal preference? You know, Hogan and Austin for sure. I can't put Rock above Cena because his run wasn't long enough. It's tough for me to put Rock above him, even though I mean, especially back then, like 98, 99, 2000. I loved The Rock back then. So I'll just say Hogan and Austin for sure. I don't know where Cena would rank for me. Like if I did a Mount Rushmore, he's not on mine. But it's going to be different for everybody, you know? People will judge it based on the business they did. How much money did they make? Or how great of a wrestler were they? Or how big of a star were they? And he's in Hollywood now, so he's got to be... I don't give a shit about that. Yeah, it's a subjective thing. Oz and Glory is if a Solomonster complains about missing a... complains about a missing something explanation AEW talent in the forest and no one is around to hear it. It doesn't make a sound. Hit like. Yes, hit like. Hit that like button. We're definitely not doing Be the Booker tonight. But it's AEW, so, you know, nobody gives a shit. You don't have to take my word for it. Compare it to the other streams and it, you know, right now nobody gives a shit. So we do the best we can. I can only work with what I have to work with. It is what it is. This is the state of AEW right now. Sometimes on those rare occasions we'll hit Be the Booker, but usually you got to wait for Monday or Friday. I don't know what to tell you. It's up to you guys. Fabian Garcia. AEW could benefit from a year of 2 to 4 month world title reigns. Gives Jay White, Kingston, Takeshita, even Darby, a chance to either solidify them or sink, and it'll make the 8 to 12 month reigns mean more. Yeah, I'm not advocating for the return of Crash TV, but man, we need to do something about these long fucking title reigns. Just in general. There's way too many of them. How long have Finn Balor and JD McDonough had those tag team titles? And how many defenses have they had during this run? Dry Chicken says, imagine Okada, instead of turning off the TV, he ends up turning off the lights or the show itself like Spaceballs. Emperor Comet, stay safe and much love, everyone. Thank you, brother. Oz and Glorious, the X polls that have Raw and SmackDown TNA at 80%. Yeah, TNA was... I enjoyed that TNA pay-per-view the other night. And Carlos Galvan, we need a Yo Soy solo intro for the podcasts and the streams. Well, hey, if you get to meet Don Callis at one of these expos, then you can get him to do it. I've had people go to these conventions and get shout outs from wrestlers for the Solomonster, or as some of them call, what did Sergeant Slaughter call me? It was fucking funny. I think I have that, actually. No, I'm not going to bring it up. It's like the Solo Monster, maggots. It's great. I actually got a Jungle Jack shout out many years ago from Jungle Boy. Yeah, what would that sound like anyway?
Yo soy solo.
That would be if Don Callis was under the weather. That's what he would sound like. If he had strep throat, that's what it would sound like if Don Callis did the shout out. We got Hallelujah says in the chat. Be the Booker is one of my favorite segments. Well, tonight wasn't your night. Hallelujah. You'll have to come join us for the SmackDown post show on Friday, where we are all but guaranteed to hit the goal. 400 likes is the minimum always. I might even raise that. 400 likes is the minimum for Be the Booker. Well, Friday is the next time I will be live with you. Unlike last week, I was not here, but I will be here this week. And so we will talk about SmackDown on Friday night. And as I said, Wrestle Dream is this Saturday. I will not be live, but I will have a full review on the podcast on Sunday. That is the plan. Episode 934 coming up. Go back and check out the Raw post show from Monday night. We talked a lot about what happened with that show closing Angle. There'll be a lot more to talk about, I'm sure, on the sound off as we get some more information that comes out. But in terms of the injury situation with Seth Rollins, it's not looking too good. And Carlos, thank you for the 47 months of channel membership. You're awesome. Be well, stay safe, have yourselves a great night, and I will see you back soon for more sound off. Until then, yo soy Solomonster. Take care, guys. Were there some super chats that I missed? There were two. Look at that. Thank you for the shout. Thank you for the shout. I almost missed these two right here. I can't miss Alex. Alex with the 5. Man, I almost missed you, Alex. You came in late. It says, do you think WWE is okay with Jericho's cruise ship slated for November of 2026? Also, how would you book his final run with WWE? I'm not going to book his final run in 2 seconds here, but I wouldn't read too much into the cruise ship stuff, honestly. I do think he's going to end up back in WWE. And I'm sure that when he negotiates with them, that will be part of what they talk about. You know, he wants to continue to do the cruise. And so, you know, they're going to have to accommodate that if he's adamant about it. I can't see that being a deal breaker. And they'll have to just work around. It's tough, though, because like the next cruise is in November. So you got to make sure it doesn't really conflict with anything. But maybe they'll be more open to actually sending their talent. It's tough, though, you know, because what talent are they going to send? They're not going to send major names. They need them. But I'm sure they could work something out there. And Ricardo says it's time for Dark State to change their name to Dork State. You can't. We already used that for the Dark Order. That's why they're the Dork Order. So we got to come up with a different name for Dark State. Waste of space? Maybe that works. The Winston Slit says, what are your favorite Toni Storm matches? Well, you know what? I have to go with that last match she had with Mariah May. And the match with Mercedes, which I think is one of the best matches in AEW history as far as the women's division goes. And they both came this year. You want two great Toni Storm matches to watch? There you go. Those are your matches. Take care.